All right. Welcome back to the Heroic Nation podcast, the place where warriors, first responders, and men of action come to build stronger bodies, resilient minds, and unshakable grit, according to ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT what he thought of my podcast, and that is what he advised. I'm assuming ChatGPT is a dude, by the way. Anyway, that's not the tagline for the show, but it was epic and ridiculous. So I thought I would share it with you. Anyway, all right. A lot of stuff to cover. And I'm honestly not going to do it here. So a little preview for other things. But been doing a lot of looking into anxiety. I have talked to a ton of, especially like high school athletes, about anxiety and performance-related anxiety in sports, stress for, goals and in school and so academics, athletics, life in general. A lot of kids are struggling with anxiety, and it seems to be either they're talking about it more than like when I was in high school, or it is more pervasive. But that's not just in high school, but also like you can kind of tell the temperature of everything lately is very anxious. And there's a lot of stuff that I've kind of like looking at with anxiety, stress, and physical and athletic performance. So look forward to some of that coming in the near future. And I'm really like more convinced than ever that the mental game, the mental health side of things, the mental framing that you do is more important than the physical training and that kind of stuff. The specifics of the physical training that you do are less important than the psychological side of things, the behavioral side of things. Those will lead you to what you want athletically, behaviorally, like that kind of stuff. But if you don't have the mental side of it, then getting the physical side of it will be more difficult than it needs to be, and it will lead you back to the mental side of it almost every time. I think so. Look for some of that. Look for more of that. But for today, staying focused. This is a little bit of both mental and physical, right? So today I talked to Jessica Raymond. Jessica is CEO and co-founder of Live One Health. Jessica has a passion for men's health, hormone optimization, and helping men reclaim their masculine energy so they can fully show up as leaders, husbands, fathers, and protectors. In this conversation, we cover everything from testosterone to peptides, cortisol and shift work, psychological frameworks that drive resilience and purpose. So we really blended a lot of different things together. And if you are working a shift, if you are working in first responder, law enforcement, nursing, any type of high stress profession like that, where you're dealing with atypical, super high stresses, this is going to be a really good one for you. And if I get a lot of questions about cortisol, I get a lot of questions about cholesterol, and it was really nice to hear from an educated expert in the field. Jessica was also invited to speak at Allie Gilbert's Silverback. God, I can't remember the cut. It was one of her coaching summits, but that's a big deal. So, check it out, and I hope you get something out of it.
We're always like, gotta be like at the highest level, like you gotta have everything.
Well, I tell you what, that's the one thing that I did notice. I had like I still have it around here. I use it when everything else falls apart, but like one of those cheap like blue snowball mics, and then like that did okay, but like man, it made a world of difference when I upgraded to the Rode system, and it was like game changer. Like I sound like a pro,
Right.
but my
Right. And you got to
content
stand
still
out like
kind of
that,
sucks.
in the podcast world. So doing that, and I have those little small ones, the little small Rodes too, that I try to take to the gym with me.
Yeah.
I could not get them to connect to my phone, and I probably should just get them out and try it again. But
Yeah, those I've no I gotta do that too because even in my garage when I try to do content, it sounds very
Yeah.
amateurish. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I am amateurish, so I guess it
Well, yeah,
fits.
that's
It fits,
right.
right?
We'll just stay amateur until we're not.
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
appreciate you jumping on, and I really want to get into. I know you asked like, do you have specific topics? And it's like, I just kind of roll with things with this
Yeah.
podcast. I find that conversations are a lot more interesting than canned questions. So
Yeah. Totally fine.
So I just wanted to start with your background, kind of where you're from, how you got into the men's health space, and we can talk
Yeah.
about Live One if you want.
Yeah.
And you're from Michigan, right? So
Yes, I'm from Michigan,
yeah,
way up
so
north, like way like West Branch. So like 3 hours north of Detroit. You got to do the whole like hand thing. Like I always forget which hand, like way up here, you
yeah,
know.
that
So
well, I'm from Grand Rapids, so that makes me
okay.
from
There you go.
over here. Yeah, over here. Yeah, when I moved to Indiana for college, that's what like that blew people's minds that they were like, "Why do you do that with your hand?" I'm like, "Because this is the state of
So
Mich
easy.
it's the Great Lakes state of Michigan. Come on, man."
I know it's super, super easy. So yeah, that's where I grew up in West Branch, small town, and now live down here in Midland and have our office here in Midland. So it's been great.
Well, cool. Well, like let's talk about like kind of your educational background and because I know you're an NP, but kind of like
Mhm.
how what brought you into that space and like how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, yeah. So kind of make the story kind of slice too. And so I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Live One Health. But the story kind of started like from the very beginning. And when in the beginning, I was like a nurse's aide at like a nurse's home or like a nursing home, and then went on to be a nurse. So I worked as an emergency department nurse in Saginaw at Covenant and St. Mary's. So two level two trauma centers. So I was like a kind of like this small town girl, and I was like, oh, I'll go down to Saginaw and like work in the ER. Oh man, I was like thrown to the wolves, and I
Cool,
like
dude.
grew
Yeah.
up fast there, right? Like
So
delivering
did you
babies.
get
Yeah,
I mean you said level two trauma or level one
level two
trauma?
trauma center is yeah.
Yeah, so did you get a lot of the shootings and stuff like that, like inner city violent stuff?
Always,
Yeah.
always. Yeah, I mean, literally delivering babies, taking care of someone's like hangnail, and then like somebody coming and getting shot. Like so many things from like teenagers getting shot to like a couple police officers that were shot. Like, I mean, everything. Like you really learned everything right offhand. And so that was a great first experience. It was super tough, but I'm very glad that I had that. So I was a nurse for a while, and then I went back to Saginaw Valley to get my nurse practitioner degree because I always knew I wanted to do more and worked as a hospitalist. Hospitalist basically is somebody that sees the patient from when they come into the ER and then they stay in the hospital and then they go home. So like through all of those experiences, it was like you really got to see and like feel life from the moment it was brought into the world to like the very, very end. And you really learn how fragile life is. Like, holy shit. Well, maybe I shouldn't swear on the podcast, but
Totally fine. You are clear hot to say whatever you want.
okay. Yeah. So, like, when you're in that setting, you're literally like in the rooms of like the family members that are trying to decide what nursing home to put their parents in, or like you're trying to console them because their like husband just passed away of heart disease in their 50s. Like, you are there with them experiencing that. And then you're seeing people with dementia in the hallways, and you're like, how do I not end up like that? And really, I kind of felt like there was this huge like healthcare crisis in the sick care system. And it just developed into learning more about health optimization and through blood work and all this stuff. And kind of the men's health thing, how I got into that was more like growing up in West Branch, like I mean, it was always a farming community and stuff too. So I ended up marrying a farmer, and it was like fine, everything was okay, but like I have a little bit more of a masculine energy, kind of like I'm going to control stuff or be in the way. And my ex-husband, he wasn't like bad or anything, but it just wasn't like that good kind of like connection between like a feminine masculine energy kind of thing. And I wasn't happy, and I just left. I left. I had my son, and I just knew I needed more. And then I met my current boyfriend, and like his masculine energy just so overpowered mine, and just like put me in my feminine energy. And I never thought that was a thing until I experienced it. And I'm like, how do I help more women feel this way? And so it really got me into men's health and learning about testosterone and doing all the things. And I love taking care of men because we need more masculine men in this world. Like we need that. And it's been a game changer ever since. And I was able to bring all that together at Live One. And our mission was just like help men get hard, stay hard, and do hard things. So
So I'm gonna pull apart a few things that like are completely not related to hormones, but I think they
yeah,
are because of the story that you kind of laid out.
yeah,
So my background is psychology. I've got 2 degrees in psych, and some of the stuff that you just pointed out, it was like, what you learned through being an on-shift nurse, right, was like seeing all spectrums of life, and that is something
everything.
that I think is hypercritical to understand. And like a lot of guys that listen to this podcast are cops or military, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think you pointed out from a nursing standpoint the same thing that I see from the police world, which is like, man, we see the worst of the worst. We see death. Like
Hmm.
like literally yesterday, right? Was we had there was a car chase with a murderer who had a dead body in the back seat, and then he wrecked out, shot himself in the head, right?
Wow.
And then my job was to go and pull the dude with the bullet hole in his head with his brain hanging out of the car, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I dealt with yesterday. But
Wow.
right after that, I get to go to coach my kids' football. So it's
Right.
very like it creates this disjointed,
Oh,
compartmentalized
yeah.
life. And nurses are the same way, right?
Yeah.
And it has an opportunity that you can either lean into that and say, I get to see the worst of the worst, so I know what the good stuff is. I get to
Hmm.
clearly identify an out of bounds and an inbounds for like good and bad, right? It,
Yeah.
it makes it very clear. And or the other way is you don't compartmentalize and you don't see the good, and everything becomes very gray and very bad.
Hmm.
And I think it's easy
Indeed.
to do. It's easy to go that way, but if you really look at things through the frame that you laid out, like I get to see babies being born, and I get to see death from gang violence.
Yeah.
Like it seems horrible, but at the same time, it allows you to look at life through a different lens, if that makes sense.
Right. It's a different perspective. It's kind of it's honestly like this gift and a curse in some degree sometimes because you're
Yes.
like, death can be tomorrow. Like it literally can be.
Yeah.
Like you are not promised tomorrow. Like people woke up and didn't know they were going to be diagnosed with cancer today. So it was like when you lead with that mindset, you're like, I'm just going to live today to the best that I possibly can. And how can I feel like the best I possibly can too? So it's a unique gift to nursing and frontline workers and police officers and stuff too. And it has to be viewed that way as a perspective. And sometimes it's hard to do that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, and then to continue that and look at the points that you laid out for like with your personal relationship and how you ended up where you're at, like the
Hmm.
fact that you got so much into the masculine side of it just meant that was kind of like you didn't understand the frame of that as much, so you dove into that to understand like how do I
Yeah.
not repeat these things in my life? How do I not
Right.
like go back down the same patterns and the same cycles? So you leaned into that, and then boom,
Yeah.
it makes things come together a little bit more clear.
It really, really did. And even like in the very beginning, like when I was unhappy in my first marriage and I just had my son and I was actually like 230 pounds. I was way overweight, super unhealthy. No one in my family ever like worked out or anything. And I'm like, I am ending up there. Like that is literally me. And like I knew if I was going to continue down that path, like that I would end up in a nursing home myself or like seeing people with dementia. It's like, oh my gosh, like they are a shell of themselves. And so literally I just like went to the gym, started on a treadmill, listened to motivational speeches, like so many like David Goggins and like Jocko, like all that stuff. Like I can recite probably a lot of that just because I listened to them over and over and over, like Motiversity, like all those things. And that really like I didn't have anybody to tell me to do that, but I knew I had to. Like it was just that experiences. And like going into men's health and seeing how much I was able to succeed when I finally met somebody that had that masculine energy that I think all females really want to have and experience in their lives and see how much more I could do and pursue and how much more I succeeded at that. And I was like, I have to help men like feel this way so they can optimize stuff because if I can help a man feel in their masculine energy, I can totally help the female too. So
Have you ever read the book
mm,
Wild at Heart? Have you ever heard of that?
no, no.
It's basically everything that you just laid out.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey was a big proponent of that. Like I listened to
Okay.
Dave Ramsey a lot back in the day, but he talks about Wild at Heart, and it really defines masculine and feminine energies exactly the way that you laid it out.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
he's got a little bit more of like a stereotypical or archetypal roles, but
Sure.
it fits that same frame. So
Sure,
I think
sure.
you might
And this
really
is,
like that.
yeah, this is like a book here too, The Way of the Superior Man.
Yeah.
I always have my men read that. It's so good. A lot of my men I've taken care of, it's by David Dowda. All over the country, I've taken care of like through when I worked at a telemedicine company. They've like that book changed their lives because it just put a lot of things in perspective. And there's a role for females, a role for men, and they, need to fulfill those roles fully as they best possibly can.
Yeah, I love that, and that really starts to blend like the mental health, the physical health, and like framing things. I think frames are really, really important.
Yeah.
When you get your mental frames off, like then things don't make sense. That's when you start getting anxiety. That's when you start feeling like you're losing control, like
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
yeah.
Right.
All right, so let's. I've got a bunch of questions from what you just said, but I want to like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Let's go back to some basic stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, what are hormones and why are they
Yeah.
important?
Yeah. Well, there are chemicals in our body that help our body do what they need to do, like testosterone. Testosterone, and when we think of like testosterone, we think of like testosterone is the male hormone, but women actually have more testosterone in their body than estrogen, if you look at the same units. So, sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, all they help our body be like who we're supposed to become. And testosterone helps men be the masculine men they're supposed to be. They give them that potential, but they also need to meet that medicine and meet those hormones halfway, but it helps their little chemical messengers that tell our body what they need to do. Hmm.
What about peptides? Let's talk about like
Yeah.
what's the difference between like taking exogenous hormones and like you just listed like estrogen, testosterone, but like
Yeah.
let me go here before we get into that. Like what are
Yeah.
some other hormones some other hormones within that same system that
Hmm.
are also important to look at, not just testosterone. And then what's the difference between, and when we talk about exogenous hormones and like taking medications, I feel like the world is getting inundated with peptides and
Yeah.
hormones and TRT. And it's
Hmm.
like a lot of guys I talk to, like they don't know the difference because it all kind of honestly sounds the same.
Blends
So,
in.
so unless you're going to take it upon yourself to go and learn this stuff, like you're
Yeah.
just going to be like, oh yeah, well, I'll take this and this and this and this. And it's like,
Right.
I don't know. So yeah,
Yeah.
can you kind of like pull that apart a little bit for us?
So I think the best way to pull any complex topic apart like that is to uh, build it out of a framework. So the framework that I go on is like a kind of a pyramid, basically. So the bottom of that pyramid is going to be lifestyle and foundational stuff. So because it all leads up to, because I was thinking peptides is like the cherry on top. So basically, like the foundational work, like getting in your proteins, resistance training, sleep optimization, stress optimization, all that's going to be foundation. Because you can't out medicate or out supplement a poor lifestyle or poor foundation. So as you build upon that foundation, the next step there is like kind of supplementation. So when we're talking about like vitamin D is a hormone actually too. So like when you're looking at like your micronutrients, you're looking at like omega-3s, your magnesium, your vitamin D, your B vitamins, all of those play a role in the production of your hormones actually. So like you build upon that, whether it's through your diet or through actual like supplementation. On top of that is going to be those hormones as well. So if someone comes in and they're like thyroid function is off or their hormones are off, like in terms of their sex hormones, we're going to look at that foundational aspect and and like the supplementation or like the micronutrients because they'll greatly impact the production of those hormones. So with looking at like thyroid, so thyroid being a hormone there too, it kind of helps with if you have low thyroid function, you can have symptoms of low energy, easy fatigability, constipation, dry skin, brittle hair, heat, cold intolerances. A lot of times it kind of coincides with low testosterone symptoms. So we can help fix up the thyroid hormones there by improving like selenium, zinc, vitamin A, iodine, like all those different cofactors to help you improve your hormone function. So when you're improving all of that, you kind of get those up to speed and maximize that out. On top of that is where peptides could come into play after like optimizing hormones. So if you're trying to use like a growth hormone secretagogue, which usually growth hormones better than growth hormone secretagogues, or any of the other slew of peptides, those are just like you kind of think of them as like little text messages that kind of go out through your body to tell your body to work a little bit harder on things. But if your body is like not having enough vitamin D or like the iron super low or your testosterone super far off, like if you pull in that first, you're going to get more ROI out of those peptides at the end of the day. So peptides are sexy. Like I like to think of them as they're the sexy thing. They're like, okay, well, this is the cool thing, but you're not doing the non-sexy work to actually get the biggest bang for your buck out of those peptides. Yes, like BBC 157 and TB 500, like you could use that like for an acute injury or anything. And I see great results with utilizing them when needed, but you don't need them all the time. Like if your body was resilient enough, like if you decreased your inflammation, improved your insulin, you had great testosterone levels, you may not need those peptides all the time. You just need them like at the time like of an injury if you had that because your body can be more resilient. So it's kind of a long-winded way to say it because it's a very complex topic. But when you can break it down into like lifestyle, supplementation, hormones, and then maybe peptides is like the cherry on top, like that's how you want to approach it.
So would you say, and that kind of like answered my next question, like as
Mm-hmm.
far as order of operations, like let's say I'm a 43-year-old male with working shift and I feel like crap and I'm like, man, I want to feel better. I'm listening to this podcast
Yeah.
and I come to you, right? Would you
Yeah.
say that is the appropriate order of operations, like what you
Mm-hmm.
just laid out there?
Yeah. I mean, the night shift worker thing is very difficult because sometimes there's no way to get around it, but you have to just maximize what you can. Like if you're an athlete, you need like 20% more magnesium. Like, are you getting enough fluids and electrolytes when you're wearing the uniform and you're sweating and you're running? You're losing sodium and potassium and magnesium in that sweat. So you need to replenish that. How's your hydration? How is your social life too? Are you drinking alcohol all the time? Because alcohol is literally a poison or a stage one carcinogen known to cause cancer, and that's messing with your liver. And your liver's one of your liver's role is to get rid of excess estrogen and testosterone too, instead of holding on to it and causing fluid retention, increasing your blood pressure. So if you're coming to me to find like the latest and greatest peptide, like I can talk to you about it, but I would be feeling like I'm being a disservice to you if we don't first like let's fine tune a couple other items that are gonna like actually give you more bang for your buck by working on that foundation stuff first. And maybe it is low testosterone. We need to work on that. But are you actually getting in enough protein? Like, do you track your protein? Do you know how much you're getting in? Right? Are you like, how is your sleep quality? Do you have sleep apnea? Like, those things are going to move the needle way more than some random peptide. So that's where I would start with. Like that'd be the best way to start. That's where I actually see the biggest differences. And it's not just me saying that. Like I literally see it in their in-body scans when I look at their muscle mass, their body fat, their visceral fat, and also the lab work. And I look at that trended out and I see the trends. And as I implement those areas, I'm going to see bigger movement versus just adding in some peptide.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like personally, before I started TRT, I did oh man, a year of continuous blood work and lifestyle optimization. I changed my
Hmm.
shift to see what that did to the numbers.
Right.
Because like I mean, everybody's different, right? As far as how things affect you and where your numbers are, in a lot of ways. But like I had my total testosterone taken when I was on nights and it was like 124. And
Wow.
then I went, and then I
My
went
testosterone
to
was more than that.
and then I went to day shift, and then within 2-3 months, it was back up to like 599 or something like that.
Yeah.
So like drastically improved just based on
Hmm.
that. And
Yeah.
then staying on same shift, changing other variables, like continuing to just put the puzzle together, change a variable, see
Hmm.
what happens, change a variable, see what happens. Getting it up to about 500 was about the top of the line for me.
Hmm.
And that's when it was like, all right, well, this is still in range. It's a lot lower in range than I would like, based on a
Hmm.
lot of the other numbers too. So it's like, all right, now it makes more sense to take the next step versus
Right.
like, oh yeah, your testosterone's in the tank. You don't sleep, you don't train, you eat like garbage,
Hmm.
and you have an insane amount of like outside stress in your life.
Hmm.
Let's not throw hormones on it right away and
Yeah.
just pray that it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Because
that doesn't seem like a very prudent option.
absolutely. And it won't turn out very well most of the time. I mean, testosterone's not a panacea. It's not going to fix everything. It's not a magic pill. And really, I think of and explain testosterone as like a Lamborghini engine. Like you can put that Lamborghini engine in a rusty old like vehicle and it'll get out the driveway, but it will break down once you get down the road a little bit. So if I improve that vehicle that I'm going to be putting that testosterone in, less side effects, like going to be doing really, really well and going to actually like get the benefits from that testosterone that they deserve when they actually implement that. And it is like, even if it's like a 3 month deal, like a lot of times within 3 months, like I'm like, okay, let's track a couple of things, let's change a couple of things. How do you feel? Do you still have these symptoms? And if you still have hypogonadal symptoms or low testosterone symptoms, let's talk about starting testosterone. Or let's buy a little more time. Let's do another 3 months and push it a little bit. See what you can do. It's a little bit of psychology thing behind that as well, because I want them to, testosterone is a lifelong therapy. So I want them to realize that it's not just the testosterone that has helped them make all these changes. Like they were able to do a lot on their own, and they were able to gain that momentum on their own as well. So that needs to continue when they are on that testosterone, because guys, maybe 5 years later, they're like, did I really do everything that I could have done before starting testosterone therapy? And some guys can say no, but I would like to see a lot of guys that I take care of, like they say, yes, we went through everything. We tried everything first, and we ended up on testosterone, and now I feel great because I've already kind of invested my time and effort into that. So,
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to really point out is like you got to do a lot of the legwork first in
mhm.
order to like just if nothing else, it gives you that internal locus of control. Like
Yeah,
I'm in charge of this journey. This is just going to help me along the way, optimize
yeah,
things, you know.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
you do you see that do you see any guys that feel like it's cheating? Like I don't want to use this because it's cheating, like it's some sort of like PED and
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to
Yeah.
have it type deal.
I think in the beginning, they might come to me with that kind of thought of like, well, I already have like enough testosterone and stuff. I feel okay. Like if I take testosterone, then yeah, like they're cheating somehow. But I think when I explain it to them, like if your wife or girlfriend was going through menopause and they had like, they were castrated from their estrogen and progesterone, they're not cheating by getting that hormone back. They're actually kind of like replenishing that so they can feel a ton better. Like, is it cheating if you feel a ton better and you like are able to be more productive and kind of be the man that you're supposed to be? It's not really cheating. Like, I think you're cheating yourself if you're not taking testosterone therapy and you actually need it. Like you're missing out on all the things that you could be doing or be capable of, like with those optimal testosterone levels. And it's not always the testosterone, just testosterone helps make effort feel good and gives you the reward from the effort that you're putting in. So it's not like testosterone is this like worldly fix, but it can help give you that potential. So yeah, I mean, people probably think it is cheating, but once they start taking testosterone, they realize, oh, okay, like, no, like this is amazing how I feel, and I'm doing so much more good in the world than I could have been before.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too, like we're talking about like normal physiological like
Yeah.
places. We're not going super physiologic. You're not going to
Right.
go and compete in a, you know, like IFBB. You're not going to all of a
Hmm.
sudden take a, you know, 150 dose of TRT
No.
and get on the stage and be Ronnie Coleman. Like that's
Right.
not that's not
No.
reality.
No, they take a lot more than just testosterone. I'll tell you what.
A lot more. Yeah.
Like they don't even know what they took probably. Like at some point. So yeah, a lot more. And we're thinking like testosterone therapy, like usually testosterone cypionate usually is the most common one. Um, Anywhere from, I mean, it could be as low as 120 milligrams all the way up to 250. Like that's still within that kind of TRT range. And people that go a lot more, I mean, you have to still have a really good base to go up higher to actually get the benefits, or you're going to have a lot more side effects at the higher dosing as well. So yeah, talking more of like TRT, but you can do a lot. Like people think like, oh, I need 500 milligrams of testosterone to do anything and build muscle, but you actually like if you put the effort into like actually getting enough protein, getting in your sleep, and doing all that stuff, you can get a lot out of your testosterone. You still can get 1,000, 1,500, any of those ranges, like with 150 to 200 milligrams of testosterone.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at. I'm at 150,
Mhm.
and I when I started out, I think I was at 200 or 250, and I don't know something about it just felt too hot, you know. And then my
Mhm.
numbers were really high, and I was like,
Yeah.
I think we can back this down a little bit. And
Yep.
like I'm only at 150 a week, and like my levels, my totals at like between 800 and 1,000 every time I
Hmm.
get drawn, and I'm like, man, I feel good. I like where
Right.
I'm at. I can get results based on my effort, you know,
Yep.
and yeah, just
Right.
it's not that big a deal.
Right. And it's the total and the free testosterone as well. So you can have a lot of guys that have high total but low free testosterones.
Yes.
So kind of just looking into that too. Mhm.
Since you mentioned it, that's
Mhm.
exactly my situation. My SHBG is super high. My total is always like decent, but my free is like always
Yeah.
way, way, way low. And
Yeah.
that was a big indicator for me to start TRT.
Hmm.
Was that free testosterone was like basically non-existent, like
Right.
single digits. Um,
Right.
so what like there's different profiles. Like that's like one kind of profile. Like there are
Mhm.
other is do you find like there's different like like profiles or archetypes like that?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So if somebody comes in, like I'm always starting with a whole entire panel to look at everything because so many things impact testosterone. So of course there's like the obese individual because if they have a higher adipose tissue, there's something in that fat tissue called aromatase. It's an enzyme that converts more testosterone to estrogen. So they have a little bit higher estrogen levels, which downregulates the gonadotropins from the pituitary gland to tell the testicles to produce testosterone. So they have low testosterone more from like a metabolic standpoint. Um, and then the second group would be like if somebody does have a high SHBG, whether that's from if they're more on a carnivore based diet, they're going to have a higher SHBG level or the sex hormone binding globulin. Um, just to clarify, sex hormone binding globulin and albumin are proteins that carry that testosterone where it needs to go. And whatever's left over is that free testosterone. So your total is like all of like the free plus like what's bound to those proteins and the free testosterone which you have available. I kind of describe it as like total is what you have available in inventory and then free testosterone which you have on the shelf for sale so it's to be able to be utilized. Um, so those guys that have a higher SHBG, sometimes we'll try to actually work that down. We'll try to add a little more carbs into their diet. We'll boron potentially can reduce that if you have about 10 milligrams a day, can reduce down the production of SHBG in the liver. Magnesium has a higher affinity to that SHBG. So like there's some ways that we kind of try to manipulate that down a little bit. Sometimes it's just going to be higher. We always look at the liver function. Sometimes it's genetic having it higher. If somebody does have a higher SHBG, I need to overpower that with a bit higher total testosterone to achieve at least a 2 to 3% free testosterone. And it's more so the numbers, it's symptom resolution as well. So we kind of look at both sides of it. And then, of course, there's primary gonad or hypogonadism, where like the testicles just aren't producing the testosterone like it should, whether they have a varicocele or they've had an injury, testicular torsions, or if they've had something wrong with the testicles and it's not producing it. Like they're getting the signal from the pituitary gland to try to produce testosterone, but it's not doing it. Or there's somebody that has like went to take care of like the military, or maybe if they've played a lot of sports and had concussions, if they've had a history of like head trauma, concussions, or PTSD, sometimes that pituitary gland is not sending the signal like it should of the LH or the luteinizing hormone or the FSH, which is the follicle stimulating hormone, to the testes to produce testosterone. So it kind of goes like, yes, there's different like phenotypes, but there's also different like reasons why somebody can have that low testosterone. And we always want to be able to identify that before we're starting anybody on testosterone.
So with that, you would approach things differently with dosage or with what
Mhm.
you would supplement with.
So it would depend on like how if somebody has low testosterone symptoms, and as I go through the blood work, if I'm not finding a lot of constraints, and they're like my low testosterone symptoms, like I feel like when I get home from work, I'm just falling on the couch. I don't have any energy. I'm not able to put on muscle mass. I'm not running in all cylinders like I used to. Low libido, erection quality issues, like not able to put on muscle mass if they're having those symptoms and they're impacting their like daily life, like their work, their relationships, their family life, and I really can't find any other constraints, I'm usually going to go forward with that testosterone therapy, have that discussion with them. So it's never like me deciding for them. I just want to lay them the options, the risk reward ratio, and then go with it from that standpoint. If somebody had, if they're obese and we had a lot of lifestyle stuff to work on, I might try to, have them work on like lifestyle for like give me 3 to 6 months of lifestyle. Let's improve a couple of things. Let's improve your fatty liver disease, improve this insulin. So when we do put in testosterone, it's not as much of a rocky road to get you on a set it and forget it protocol. So I have them kind of so try to help them like buy some time to get there. But if they were like, I am like, I cannot manage this right now. I have super low testosterone. I don't have any drive to go to the gym, nothing at all. We have the discussion. And usually for them, I might go for like a testosterone cream potentially. It does convert more to DHT. So it can kind of give a little bit more drive, a little bit more sex drive and stuff too, and help them get along the way to kind of start going to the gym, start making these lifestyle changes. Um, if they had the high SHBG, and they're like, I want to try and see, then we're going to try to approach that a little bit. Let's try to fix thyroid. Let's bump up your proteins a little bit, see where we get to. So it kind of is a collective discussion, but really the labs kind of guide us a little bit too, and just kind of like this is a lifelong therapy, so it is a decision for them to make because it's a lifelong therapy. It's something that they need to continue on. Now, if somebody wanted to come off testosterone, I can help them. I don't usually have anybody do that, and also the other caveat is fertility. So it's just like a full discussion on what can we do to kind of help from a standpoint of like more of a natural optimization approach, and then have the full discussion when it might be time for them to start testosterone therapy.
Yeah, and I think that like what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong or I'm hearing it
Mhm.
in like not appropriately, but it's not only important to find like these profiles or archetypes, kind of is like how I picture it. So you understand like not just the total number, the big picture
Yeah,
stuff, but the pathways, the reasons why it is trending that way.
yeah,
And if there's like a mechanical problem versus a thyroid problem versus
yeah,
that, like because it is going to be a lifelong therapy, and
yeah.
it's got to be a holistic thing. It's not just like, I'll slap a Band-Aid on it, you'll be good to go.
Hmm. Right.
That I think is hopefully like trending out of like hormones, and even with like women's health, and like the massive like it, in the 90s, it's like, oh, every girl that I went to high school with was on birth control. You know what I mean? And
It's
it's like,
terrible.
yeah, and it's like, man, that can't be healthy from a
No,
long-term perspective. It's like I remember one
no.
of my sisters was like, oh yeah, the doctor said that for some of the issues she was having, just medically, just take birth control. And it
Yeah,
was like, no, that's not,
yeah,
that's not really appropriate. So like,
yeah,
so anyway, like understanding like this is a holistic approach. It does
yeah.
matter like
Hmm.
what the mechanism is, what the pathways are, in order to like come up with a comprehensive plan that's not going
Right.
to just derail you. It's actually going to help.
Absolutely. Because I mean, if I put in testosterone therapy, so if I put in testosterone therapy, and you have a thyroid issue, like you're still going, like I can get a male to maybe like 90% just with testosterone therapy, but if they have thyroid issues, like they're not going to be 100% unless I fix those thyroid issues. So I need to fix that as well, in addition to testosterone. And also, if they have a super high insulin, I need to fix that to come down because they're going to have estrogenic symptoms because their liver's not going to be able to get rid of that extra estrogen as well. And they're going to have fluid retention and then have higher blood pressure. And when I'm adding in testosterone, testosterone increases epoetin from the kidneys to tell the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. Those red blood cells need iron, B12, and folic acid to build itself up. And so if you already have really low iron stores because you've donated a whole bunch of blood all the time, then you're going to have low fatigue and think that you need to increase your testosterone dosing, but we don't actually need to do that. We need to stop donating blood, build up your iron a little bit further, maybe work on your thyroid. So when I look at optimizing testosterone, I don't see a way, like, I don't know how some clinics do it with just looking at testosterone. It's not possible to me. And maybe it is. I mean, maybe they do a great job. I don't know. But like, I don't know how I could actually, I don't want optimal testosterone levels. I want a masculine man in his full masculine energy to be able to lead and be able to like lead a family, lead a business, be able to like do all the things that men are supposed to do. And I can't just do that if I get their testosterone to like 2000. Like that's not going to do anything. Like it may help a little bit, but like you need to do all the things. Like I want the masculine man. I want their mind to be masculine. I want them to have this like drive and this energy to like take on the world. I want them to have purpose. Like that's the problem. Is like we need to have purpose and we need to have community. And like it goes way beyond just like getting a good testosterone level. So like testosterone is not a quick script. It is like something that we have to look at from every angle because we don't just want high testosterone levels. We want like that high energy masculine man to take care of his wife and family and community.
And that I think is a huge difference between just a good coach, a good doctor, and somebody who's just like, yeah, whatever, here's a Band-Aid, here is a quick fix, here is,
Yeah.
a 2000 level of testosterone,
Yeah.
you're gonna feel better. Like, yeah, you
Right.
might in the short term, but in the long term, what's it gonna do to you?
Right.
And it really boils down to like being a good consumer. And like
Hmm.
when you're talking about that, like misdiagnosis of certain things and just treating symptoms like whack-a-mole, basically,
Mhm.
is like,
Yeah.
I remember in in my master's program, like talking about ADHD diagnoses and how overdiagnosed ADHD was at certain times. And it was like, well, a lot of times, like, or often enough where it should be at least ruled out. Like, you have to rule out thyroid disorder in kids
Mhm.
before you just slap them on medication for the
Yeah.
ADHD, because you might be medicating the ADHD, which is a result of a hyperactive thyroid, and you never even bothered to check. Like,
Right.
now you got a kid on Ritalin or whatever for years. It doesn't need to be, and
Exactly.
it's not helping, you know?
Right.
So then the kid
Right.
thinks he's broken. His parents are pissed at him.
I
The whole
know.
system is just, anyway, point being, like,
Yeah.
it's the same thing here. Like, you
Yep.
just have to be a good consumer. If you're
Hmm.
talking to somebody, and you either don't understand what they're saying, or you do understand what they're saying, like, still
Hmm.
check with other people, talk to other people, like, learn as much as you can. And
Yeah.
that's where I think, like, honestly, like, being able to do
Yeah.
this is super helpful. Uh,
Yeah.
because now,
Yeah.
hopefully
And I
people have more exposure to more good people.
absolutely, absolutely. And really, at the end of the day, like you can go by the principles of like it takes no talent. Like it takes no talent to like get your protein in, to like get some creatine, optimize your sleep, like read a good book. Like those things are very simple and you'd be surprised at how it can impact your testosterone levels because you can reduce those stressors. Your cortisol levels come down. Your cortisol can be more catabolic. So you're bringing that down and then you're going to bring up the androgenic effects of that testosterone. So all those little kind of basic things really move the needle. And we kind of want more of a quick fix. And, unfortunately, like hard things are, need to take a lot of effort, and sometimes you just have to do all the non-sexy items first and then you can add on the peptides. But yeah, it is a lot of that. And really, that's what I like about the approach that I take here is also like I'm the provider, but also I have a health coach to kind of help with like the psychology kind of things behind it. Cause it's like, how do I keep that momentum? How do I help people learn how to get that into their program? And then also like the trainer to be able to kind of help them actually see what their body can do and make them more resilient.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning too. I talk to all of my all of my guys that I do even do consults with, where I see failure points are like one of three things. Like, you either have a knowledge gap that you need to close, you need to learn more
Yeah.
about whatever you're facing. You have a belief system issue where you either don't believe that you deserve results or you don't believe that the results are possible. So there's some
Yeah.
sort of belief or framing problem.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I used to think this is a most pervasive issue. It's still pretty big, but I'm not sure. The more I get into belief issues, I think that those are more like ingrained, and people don't want to show them. Uh,
Mm.
but application is the third one. Like, I know I have a belief, like my beliefs are good. I have the knowledge, but I don't understand how to apply it in my life in real time. And
Mm.
that's where it's like, I love Andrew Huberman's podcast, but he
Yeah.
gives so much information where it's like, all right, now as a cop, as a shift worker, how do I apply all of these things into my life?
Yeah.
Because it's going to look different. It's going to look different based on everything that I have going on
Yep.
versus somebody that works a 9 to 5, has Fridays, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday,
Mhm.
Sunday off, regular sleep schedule, regular stress load. Like, mine is atypical and irregular.
Yeah.
So how does it look,
Right. Right. And you don't have to like in the mornings, you don't have to do your like if you listen to I love listening to them too. And it's like you gotta do these cold plunges and do all this other stuff and everything like that. But it's like you don't want to step over $100 bills to pick up penny. Like if you did not
Yeah.
sleep, why are you getting up to do your cold plunge? Like you better go back to sleep because that is the biggest ROI that you can get. Like that is the fountain of youth is in your sleep. Is somehow try to figure that out. Like don't worry about getting up to do the cold plunge if you did not sleep. Like just kind of like evaluate what works best for you right now. You don't have to do them all at the same time either. Like what works into your schedule and a little bit makes a difference. Like brick by brick every day, like a little thing, like even simple like non-negotiables through the day of like as simple as like taking in 3 deep breaths of fresh air outside. Like just like have something that kind of keeps that consistency. And then the other things can kind of come into play too. But yeah, I think people try to do too many things. And then if they're already stressed out, our body can't differentiate the different stressors. So you're stressed at work and then you're working out and then you're stressed at home and then you're putting yourself under stress and like a cold plunge or all these other workouts and stuff. And then your body's like under a whole bunch of stress. So we have to have ways to kind of make sure we're going from that sympathetic to more of a parasympathetic state more often, and just kind of be able to find our way through that.
That is a huge problem that I see in, like, like stereotypical like alpha dudes, like hard chargers, is like we always want to turn the dial up, and it's actually
Yeah.
really easy. Like you talk about doing hard things, and it's like, yeah, well, we always think hard things is like crank to 11 and get after
Hmm.
it, right? But
Yeah.
if that's an easy thing, like it's easy for me to put on Pantera, to go in the garage and to lift till I throw up. Like that's
Yeah. It's easy.
easy for me.
Yeah.
What's harder is sitting still and
And
calming
meditating.
down and
Yeah. That's hard.
yeah, and
Yeah.
just being present, doing nothing
Hmm.
on purpose.
Hmm.
That's hard. Like that is hard.
Right. Those are the hard
And
things.
yeah, and being able to like turn the dial down on purpose,
Hmm.
if that's hard for you, like you need to be able to do that as well.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
always like the saying like that you need to be it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war or something. So like you have to be able to kind of like have all that power, but also be able to kind of just be present. And that's like that is the sign of that I don't know the alpha male, like it's alpha and like there's all these different ones now, but like just like that is like the definition of like the male to like if you're able to you have the power to do that, you can go do that, but also you're able to kind of sit. And man, that feminine energy thrives off that. Like that's amazing. That helps your woman's libido, like for sure when you can do that.
so the way I refer to that is like competent confidence.
Yeah.
So if you are very competent in what you're doing and how you're doing it, and then you will have the confidence to be still until it's time not to be still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Um, so let's go back to what you kind of talked about with cortisol. I think
Yeah.
cortisol is a very misunderstood
Yeah.
hormone,
Yeah.
and if you could shed some light on that and kind of like
Yeah.
its importance directly to shift workers, first responders, high
Yeah.
stress professions.
Right, right. And I feel like cortisol always is like the bad guy. Like everywhere on social media, it's always like, look at your cortisol. Your cortisol's doing this, it's doing all that. Like cortisol is important for us as well. And the simplest way to help improve cortisol is like go to bed about the same time, get up about the same time, improving sleep structure. And unfortunately, like for shift workers, like nothing's ever gonna be perfect. Like there's literally like less if you always continue to be a night shift worker, like you will have less years that you will have to live if you continue on that track and you don't improve any other area that you're in, like the daytime, or trying to optimize your sleep, the time that you are able to sleep. So when you're trying to improve cortisol, really looking at like trying to be consistent anyway, trying to have some sort of sleep wake cycles that are consistent, that can improve the cortisol, checking your cortisol and your blood work. It's accurate, but not as accurate as like doing like actual like saliva testing. So if you were like wanting to know like your actual like cortisol levels, you could do some salivary testing. It's a little bit more expensive. You have to do like 4 times a day and stuff. But um, really, even if without looking at your cortisol levels and you are able to tell like all day long, I have low energy, no matter what. I don't have a spike in the morning and it just always kind of slow. I'm going to know that your cortisol levels are going to be a little bit lower. So we start digging in on like the lifestyle habits and we start looking at like, do you have sleep apnea? Because actually sleep apnea can lower that cortisol levels too. So looking into the quality of sleep, looking into taking an inventory of your stressors and how can we better handle those stressors and enable to handle the stress is to making your body resilient. So if you can help your body be more resilient in way of like, I'm going to stay hydrated. I'm going to make sure I get my electrolytes in. I'm going to make sure that I can down regulate with meditation. If you're able to do those things, you probably don't even need to check your cortisol level because you're going to be able to get them down to a good range anyways. But yeah, cortisol, it is more catabolic if you're more in a high cortisol state. Catabolic meaning breaking the muscle down. Testosterone is more of that anabolic, so it's going to build that muscle and tissue. So if you're constantly in a high cortisol state where you're constantly stressed all the time, and people wear that as a badge of honor. Like this stress is a badge of honor. Like I am doing like I'm working all this and I go to work out and I like work out so hard and I don't go to sleep till 11 o'clock and then I have to take care of the kids and I'm doing all this and like they wear that as a badge of honor. Like that's like I'm a good person. I'm doing that, which that's great. You can accomplish that, but you're gonna crash out because you can only perform to the amount of like you're able to recover. So yes, cortisol is important. It can be more catabolic. It can drive up glucose, but it falls back to that foundation. And if you improve that foundation the best you possibly can, and I know it, I understand the difficulty in like night shift workers and I sympathize with them because we can only do so much. But if we can control the controllables, just be able to control the controllables that you can, try to offset like that sleep deprivation as much as you possibly can and make sure there's no sleep apnea there either.
So a few things that I want to stick with this for just a quick second because I think they're important. Number one is what you mentioned, like wearing that stress as a badge of honor.
Mhm.
To an extent, some of it, like, okay, fine. Like you're doing some cool shit, like you are sacrificing a lot of yourself for
Yeah.
this mission that you're on. But at the same time, like what happens is like, at least what I've seen is like you wear that as a badge of honor until your body falls apart and then you're just pissed about it and then you resent
Yeah.
it and then it becomes this real messed up like
Yeah.
martyr symptom of like
Right.
I'm doing all this for everyone else and look at me, I'm such a martyr because you're so unhappy with
Yeah.
what your physical existence has become. So it's a very slippery slope to do that. I really feel that it's worth pointing that out. So if you find
Mhm.
yourself like, oh, look at me, I'm doing all this stuff. It's like, well, yeah, maybe, but shut up about it and figure out how to make yourself happy and healthy in the process, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Are you happy with it? Is that your purpose? Like, and also finding ways to kind of disconnect from it a little bit because that'll only help you like be more creative and be in the moment to that stuff that you're trying to do. But it's hard. I know, I understand, but it is something that you got to try to find that balance.
yeah, and I think it's really important to be like, listen, like this is what I tell shift workers all the time too. You're cashing in the end of your life for right now. And if that's
It's so
something
true.
and if that's something that you're okay with, that's
Yes.
fine, but you have to understand that you're choosing that because you're giving of yourself. Typically shift work is like they're very service-based professions, a lot of them.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, you're giving yourself to this job, to these people that you're serving,
Hmm.
and good for you. Now,
Yeah.
do it the way that you're supposed to, the way that you set up and took
Right.
this path on, and like shut up about it. Like you need to like
Hmm.
do it with joy and do it. And if you can't function in a healthy fashion doing that, and it's taking away rather than giving, then
Yeah.
you need to have an exit strategy for this.
Right.
And that's okay too. You know what I
And
mean? Like,
control what you can because a lot of times if I'll take care of like paramedics as well and they'll say, well, the only thing open in the middle of the night is like 7-Eleven. I'm like, okay, but so is like Icon Meals. Like
yeah.
you can order like food. There's microwaves in those places. Like you if you have to make it a priority, like you have to, if you're going to choose to work night shift, and maybe it's not a choice, honestly, some people are just forced into that, like they're going into, they have to do it. If that's something, you have to be able to kind of really make those other priorities like the sleep that you can get, like the food that you're getting to feed your body, nourish your body and your brain to function at that time frame. You just have to make it a priority, and just prepare for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a choice. Like, I'll give you a fact. Like, all right, if you're brand new on the job and you're like, oh man, I didn't realize that there was nowhere to go get food. Like, totally slipped my
Mhm.
mind. Never done it before. All right, cool.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna give you a pass for a week while you get your shit together, and then
Yeah.
like next week you don't have the same excuse. Like, you knew this was gonna happen, so
Yep.
like prepare yourself. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
uh,
Because we need our first responders, like paramedics and police, we need them to be like on their game and we need them to be ready to go and we need them to be physically fit. Like, and so it's like when you're in that service, like if you don't perform that way, it's like if you kind of compare it to like an athlete, like a basketball player, football player, if they were like, didn't take care of themselves and they didn't go out and they didn't perform very well, like they wouldn't succeed. So like we need to be able to perform at our best at our job that we're doing to serve other people and we have to prepare that way too.
Yeah, well, and if you put it in a like the same but different light, like if
Yeah.
I'm an athlete and I go out there on Sunday, let's say, and I screw up and I drop a ball and
Hmm.
my even the NFL, like we lose a
Yeah.
game, like oh well, like there's a margin for error that's kind of acceptable.
Yeah.
But if I'm a cop and I go to work
Hmm.
and I haven't slept for 36 hours and I've been working
Yeah.
part times and I've been eating gummy bears and 7-Eleven roller dogs and stuff like that, like and then I make an error and
Yeah.
I shoot someone inappropriately, there
Yeah.
is a margin of error that's 0% for me.
So small. I
Zero,
mean,
0%.
zero.
So
Yeah, you're right.
like you are not just gambling with like, oh, I might not be able to perform. It's like, no,
Hmm.
physiologically, scientifically, like psychologically, you're done. But yet you're
Right.
still going to work and you're
Right.
still carrying again. You still have to make like split second decisions. You're just hedging your
Yeah.
bets on the fact you won't have to today. Like
Right.
that's not a good way to like spend a
Always have to be
20 to
prepared.
30 year career. Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to be prepared for that all the time. Hmm.
All right. So sticking with cortisol, like we got
Yeah.
this is a little sidetracked, but so like cortisol,
Hmm.
stress response. Now, ideally, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it should peak in the morning,
Mhm.
right about waking, right? So your temperature increases, cortisol spikes, and then that kind of like under normal conditions should wake you up, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then there's a little bit of a dip, it'll rise again, and then continue to fall throughout the day with little spikes as stress comes. Is that more or
Yep.
less
Kind of
how it
go
goes?
up. Yep. Straight up and then kind of come back down. So wake you up in the morning and then kind of slowly start to taper down, kind of a little bit of like ups and downs through the day, but like taper down at nighttime so we're able to fall asleep. So like if we're kind of redlining it all day and super stressed all day long, if we can't fall asleep at night, it's kind of like that cortisol still can be higher level later in the day and you can't turn your brain off, you can't sleep very well or can have sleep disruption. So at nighttime, yeah, that's when this should be the lowest, so you're able to fall asleep. So it's kind of like that fight or flight response. So if you are thinking like you're being chased or something, like you're not gonna be able to sleep at that time. So it has to be that if it's kind of relaxed time frame, that's why you have like sleep hygiene to kind of help induce more of that sleep state and bring that cortisol levels back down at the end of the day.
So with night shift especially, right?
Hmm.
So one thing that I try to like look at that normal cortisol based process throughout the day. And then
Hmm.
now if we apply that to a night shift worker, the stuff that I'll do is like, all right, like 2 hours left in shift. Hopefully it's starting to calm down a little bit. And we can start to like start the process of down regulating. You know what I mean? Light intake. I mean, I don't want to step over dollars to pick up quarters, right? But
Yeah.
like making sure that like, you're not getting a whole lot of like artificial light in your face as much as you
Yep.
can. We're sitting in a squad car with screens and stuff like that. So if we can
Yep.
get some glasses that filter that out, that would be a
That
good
helps.
option.
It really does.
Um,
Hmm.
Additionally, like, adding in like a later snack or meal even where we're using like protein, a little bit higher carbohydrate base so that we can
Hmm.
increase our insulin to bring down that cortisol level, like kind of
Yep.
like a
Good point.
post-workout.
Yeah. True. Yep.
So like I don't know how much that matters, but personally I
Mhm.
found like it helps me to have a higher cortisol meal towards the end of shift, and then that'll help me down regulate at the end of the morning.
Right.
So I
Right.
can
No, I could see
hopefully
that for
um,
sure.
additionally, so that the way I understand it, is that like if we that protein and so the carb increases the insulin, lowers the cortisol at least a
Hmm.
little bit, and then a
Hmm.
little bit of protein intake will get that sustained release throughout the night. So hopefully can push back that cortisol spike.
Hmm.
So I know I talked to a lot of guys where it's like, man, I just wake up when the sun comes up regardless, because that's how
Yeah.
your body works. And it's like, all right, well, if we can push that cortisol spike back a little bit longer and
Yeah.
like get a slow release of insulin based on protein
Mhm.
intake, maybe that'll help a little bit. But is there, so that's kind of like what I recommend to people.
Sure.
I've had a little bit of success with that. Is
Sure.
there any way, or let me ask you this, is that valid for one, or is that total crap?
No,
And then two, is there a better way to kind of like flip that cortisol pathway so that it functions more on a night shift schedule? Or is that impossible?
I mean, I think maybe it can't be 100% like that too, because it's kind of like when you're talking about like jet lag as well, like when you're changing time zones, like
Yeah.
if you can try to like do the same habits that you normally would do during that daytime there, like if you can change like you're doing, like changing the food a little bit or changing like the lighting and stuff, you're trying to mimic that normal circadian rhythm. So I think if you try to mimic that normal circadian rhythm like you're doing, I think that really ends in your favor most of the time. We're all at N of one. And when I say that, it means like we are all are different depending on how our different circumstances, how we grew up, like what we're doing at the time. So if you're able to kind of trial and error a little bit of like, can I make my day look like I normally would be? Like, so it's maybe your day starts at like 5 p.m., but what would you do normally at like 7 a.m. if you woke up? Like just trying to like mimic like that, like you're doing. I think that's the best option. And potentially you have to pull in maybe some supplementation, like maybe some melatonin when you're going to go to bed, or maybe it's so much as using like a prescription modafinil to get you going in the morning. Like maybe it does include some of that as well to kind of help. But I think you're on the right track there of trying to mimic what you normally would be doing at that time frame if you were on a normal day shift.
Okay. Cool. So I'm not
Yeah.
totally full of crap. I like it.
No, I don't think so. And then really getting in your proteins, like optimizing that, like a lot of times, people tell me like they wake up in the middle of the night, and really, if they have low blood sugar throughout the day or poor insulin sensitivities, their blood sugars go up and down and up and down. But if we can stabilize that blood sugars throughout the day by stabilizing their protein intake, that is going to continue on through the nighttime. So usually, if they do have that insulin resistance, in the middle of the night, our brain still needs that glucose. So if they have a drop in their blood sugar, then that's going to send a signal to the adrenal glands to send out that cortisol to wake them up in the middle of the night. So if we stabilize that blood sugar too, they can also stabilize that cortisol as well. So you're right on track with the proteins as well.
Awesome. Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. So the last question that I really wanted to get your opinion on
Yeah.
is GLP-1s.
Yeah.
So what efficacy or like do you use it? Do you not use it?
Yeah.
Is it helpful? Like it's a lot of people have a lot of opinions. So
There's a lot of opinions out
yeah,
there,
a
like
lot,
a wide
a
range
lot of
of
opinions. Yeah.
opinions, right? So, I mean, I approach everything as a tool in the toolkit. So, like, we have all these different tools. We have medications, we have supplementation, but nothing is going to overpower that foundation. So, whether we use a GLP-1 or not, we always are going to focus on tell me how much protein that you've gotten in. Do you know what a protein source is? No, cheese is not a protein source. Peanut butter is not a protein source. Like literally starting with that, right? So looking at education, optimizing like muscle, trying to improve all that. And sometimes like looking at the lab work, that insulin sometimes is just such a bully and it doesn't come down. And insulin is such a big rock in the lab work that impacts so many things. It impairs the communication from the brain to the thyroid, to the like to the adrenal glands, to the testes. Like it impacts a lot of things. And insulin also increases like an enzyme in the liver that increases more cholesterol. So it's very impactful. So if I can help that insulin by way of like the GIP in the tirzepatide. So like when you look at a GLP-1, like an Ozempic, like that's just the GLP. And so the GLP-1, basically we have that in our stomach. When we ingest food, it increases to our brain that we're getting full. The tirzepatide or the Mounjaro or the Zepbound has the GIP portion to it that improves the beta cell function in addition to that GLP-1. So if we've like improved a lot of other things and we're not quite getting there, and I'm able to introduce a little bit of a GLP-1 and their food noise goes down a little bit and they're able to lose a bit of weight, then they build this confidence. And they're almost like, oh, I really need to get my protein because I don't want to lose muscle mass. So it almost like kind of works in their favor to like, okay, now I can actually like get in more, I get more protein so I don't lose that muscle. But it gains them some clarity in their food addiction. It really ends up being like a food addiction or like the sugar that they've been eating. It's like this is like lifelong habits. And if somebody who's never been overweight, like overweight and obese, they might not feel what it feels like to always be hungry and have that food noise and like having those cravings. Because yes, we should be able to control it and we try to find ways to control it. But when we add in that GLP-1 for these people, they have so much clarity. They feel so much better. They feel more confident in their life. They're actually like going to the gym. They're like actually like eating appropriately. Like, yes, maybe they could have done it before, but there was just a constraint there. And reminding them it's not just like we do with the testosterone. It's not just the medication. It's you putting in that time and that effort because you can way overdose these medications and you can get side effects galore. But when used appropriately in the right context, I think they can be a great tool. They're not the end all be all tool, but they are a great tool that can be used. And it should be done in an individual basis. And I think it's a great tool that can be used if
Yeah,
needed.
I completely
Mhm.
agree with everything you're saying, and the fact that it can turn down the food noise. I mean, you can dose it at low doses and start to,
Mhm.
from what I've seen, like have
Yeah,
good success with that. Now, if you don't, um, like have a multimodal therapeutic view of these, I
right.
think that they can be abused,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
and
easy,
very very badly, and then it's going to
easy.
not have any effect on the back end
Yep.
because I mean, like, I don't think that anyone has said this should be a lifelong drug. Is that correct?
Right, right. Some people
Right.
it might be if they were overweight for their whole entire life and like it helped them. There's a risk reward ratio to anything. And if keeping on this it even just gives them a little bit of confidence that they have this and they continue on lowering their risk for cardiovascular disease and diabetes, the risk reward ratio of continuing for them is okay.
Okay.
Um, if if don't build that muscle mass. Like when I have people on this, like if the ones that are actually able to build that muscle mass, they actually like forget to take the tirzepatide. They're like, I forgot to take it the last couple of weeks because I really don't have my food noise. I'm building muscle. Like they're fine. And so they kind of like forget that they're even needing it. So that's what we try to aim for more so than anything. But yeah, some people might need it for a long term, but a majority of people really don't need it after a long time and they're able to come off of it. And as long as they build in the habits along the
Yeah.
way.
Well, and I think that's super important because like when you talk about behavioral versus physiological issues here, I think that
Hmm.
especially when you talk about food addiction, binge eating, like and even other eating disorders too,
Yeah.
you're talking about this like this pattern of like how do I interrupt this pattern of like, man, I've done so good all day, but all of a sudden like I hit my weak point in the day, which is like let's say 8 p.m. and it's like I just want to eat ice cream and watch Netflix.
Hmm.
I'm not talking about myself here at all either, right? Totally what I do. But
Yeah.
but anyway, so like let's say that is the issue, and then all of a sudden you hit that, you're like, I did good, oh, I failed, oh, I'm a piece of
Yeah.
shit, and then you hit this shame cycle pattern, and it becomes like a weekly or even daily cycle. So if
Yeah.
you can add something like a GLP and shut that
Hmm.
down. So you don't feel like, oh, I need to have this, and you can actually
Sure.
start to like pull apart some of the issues that you
Yeah.
have outside of the food noise,
Yeah.
outside of this addictive process,
Yeah.
then I think that has a lot of potential to help a lot of people. But you have to have a multimodal approach to it.
You have to. You have to. It gives them, it's like a pause button for them. It's kind of like a nicotine patch. So like kind of like having a nicotine patch on kind of helps them be able to get off. They have the nicotine patch on or they use like a little lozenges or gum to kind of help those little spikes or anything of like the cravings. And then eventually they're able to come off like smoking cigarettes. And so like when you have the tirzepatide on, it gives them just a little bit of a pause button to say, okay, I'm recognizing that I'm going to the pantry to get this. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I bored? It gives them a little bit of that. So they start to kind of recognize and learn themselves a little bit more.
Create space.
It creates space,
Yeah.
exactly. And when you utilize it that way and you educate them, that's why people that just get tirzepatide from a med spa, I don't understand how that even works because it's not appropriate. Like you have to have this is the time that we need like trainers the most. We need like health coaches the most to help meet that medicine halfway. So you have the tirzepatide, but you have to meet that medicine halfway so it can either reduce the dosing, come off of it, and actually, and ultimately at the end of the day, to help you feel and perform at your best and add more life to your years at the end of the day.
I love it.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some other stuff too. Well, let me, without getting into the full, this is a whole nother can of worms, but
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you look at, when you do your blood work with guys, do you look at like cholesterol levels, stuff like that, or is it only hormones?
Oh, I have to look at cholesterol. Like, so if a guy comes to me for erectile dysfunction, you're automatically going to think testosterone. But one of the first signs of cardiovascular disease is erectile dysfunction. So if the reason why is because in like the penile tissue in those vessels, it's called the endothelial lining, and it's greatly impacted by cholesterol, blood pressure, and insulin. So if I just give you tadalafil or Cialis and you get an erection, that's great, but it's going to wear off if you have cardiovascular issues. So I need to check your cholesterol markers, your whole lipid panel. I need to check your apolipoprotein B, and I need to check your lipoprotein little a. I need to look at your insulin. I need to look at the thyroid function because the thyroid also can increase your risk of cardiovascular disease if it's elevated. So, I mean, cardiovascular disease, stroke, heart attack, vascular disease is the number one killer of people globally. And 90% of its risk factors can be reduced by reducing your lifelong exposure to high cholesterol and high blood pressure. And the cholesterol isn't always the bad guy, it's if the cholesterol is in the setting of high inflammation or high insulin. So when we look at men's health, again, we're not looking at just optimizing their testosterone. We're trying to help them be the most masculine men they possibly can be and reduce any type of cardiovascular risk and lowering that blood pressure, making sure that their cholesterol is within like a really optimal range. Maybe they went in to get a coronary artery calcium score or a CCTA to make sure they don't have any buildup in their arteries because they're taking care of their family. So if they have a heart attack and they end up like on disability or they can't function like they used to, then they're going to lose all this income that they had in the family. So like we need to be able to optimize that. And the seeds of dementia, cancers, diabetes, cardiovascular disease all begin in your like 20, 30, 40s, and 50s. So if you don't recognize it then, it's going to be building up, building up, building up. And hypertension is the silent killer. So if you're not recognizing that early, you are limiting your life experience and the ability to be present in your 60s, 70s, 80s. So you have to check all that stuff. Like I don't know how I could take care of men without checking any of that.
Well, that's awesome. Now, what what do you think about statins? I know that like
Mhm.
I had a calcium test probably 2 years ago, and my doctor was immediately like statin, statin, statin. I was like, whoa, 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 let's
Yeah,
get some more blood work before I just start jumping on all these different cholesterol meds. Uh,
sure,
so yeah, fill me
sure.
in.
I think it's an so these are tools that are toolkit again. That's where I kind of start from. And if I see someone's lab work first and they have elevated LDL, I know that's going to be impacted by thyroid function and also insulin. And I can reduce the ApoB by getting 15%, or I can reduce by 15% if I get more fiber intake in. So I know I can move the needle on some of these cholesterol markers from like lifestyle and sleep optimization and stuff like that. So I've watched the numbers change. The picture though, so getting those images like the coronary artery calcium score, that's a viewpoint of the calcified plaque in the artery. So when you look at atherosclerosis, calcification is the end stage of cardiovascular disease. If you get a CT angiogram of the coronary arteries, that's looking at the soft plaque. So the soft plaque is what ends up breaking off or developing into a stroke or heart attack. So if we identified on imaging that we had an elevated risk, we need to be able to make a decision on, is it enough of a narrowing? Is there's enough plaque buildup there that we should be a little bit more aggressive? Does that mean that you need to be on high dose statin therapy? No, like there's discussion of baseline again, like cardio, like getting in your omega 3s, like getting 8% on your omega 3 index, like optimizing all that, not smoking, all the things, easy stuff. The next thing is like making sure, like maybe you use like an ezetimibe. Ezetimibe decreases the absorption of cholesterol in the gut. It doesn't stabilize any plaque in the arteries, but it kind of reduces the number of passengers on the vehicles being brought to the arteries. If you needed a statin therapy's role is to stabilize plaque in the arteries. And we don't necessarily need a high dose. Like if I was to pull in a rosuvastatin, I would do either like a 5 or 10 milligrams 3 times a week and see how that does bring down the cholesterol markers. And do we need to continue to monitor the coronary artery calcium score? Or, well, usually you would do more of the CCTA because if you take in statin therapy, you're going to naturally see an increase in the coronary artery calcium score because the role of the statin is to calcify that plaque. So it's that decision. It's looking at your family history. Like if you have people, like if your brother and your dad died in your 50s of heart disease and you have a high CAC score, it's a risk reward ratio. And if we're going to use the least most effective dose possible with lifestyle factors and we monitor, then that might be the right choice for you. There is like PCSK9 inhibitors. Those usually aren't covered by insurance. You usually have to fail therapy with statins first.
That like
And there's
Repatha.
Yep, Repatha. There's also bempedoic acid. So bempedoic acid increases your LDL receptor, so it gets rid of more cholesterol that way too. So another form other than statin therapy is bempedoic acid plus the ezetimibe. So that together can be an option for you. So it just is kind of looking at the whole picture together again, looking at lifestyle, looking at your family history, and following that images to see how things transition. Like over time, you can watch a CCTA and see the increase or decrease in your plaque. We may never see a full decrease in it, but there are other options other than statin therapies. But you could also use a lower dose of a statin if that's the option that you end up with, and just doing it like 3 times a week versus daily with the ezetimibe because they have synergistic effects. So there's other options to try to reduce your cardiovascular risks the best you possibly can without like high dose statin therapy.
Yeah, and I think again, like being a good consumer, and this is nothing against general practitioners, but general
Yeah,
practitioners throw basic shit at everything.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they just, that's their
yeah.
job. So you have to know
It
when
is.
to ask for referral out,
Mm-hmm.
which is anytime you're dealing with anything that's not just basic stuff, I
Yeah,
think. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, cholesterol, cardiac related events, like those are if you extrapolate, right, cause of death to a 24-hour period for cops, it's always, always, always cardiovascular related.
yeah.
Always. The only reason that it's not higher up is that we don't look at it from a 24-hour period. With cops, it's just shift work. With firefighters, I think it's way higher because of the 24-hour shifts that they work. So
Okay.
the
Yeah.
the line of duty deaths are, I don't want to say a little misleading, but like, I personally, my department, I think we've had 4 officer deaths since I've been on, and they've been 100% cardiac related.
Really.
100%. So it's like, we talk about like, bullets and wear your seatbelt and like know how to fight. But at the same time, we mention zero about like what the hell is LDL? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
maybe we ought to think about that because this is what's
Yeah.
killing people. This is the reality is like it is our health problems that are causing our
Hmm.
deaths more than our tactics,
Wow.
and that's the truth. Like those are
Yeah.
stats. So
Hmm.
yeah, but
Yeah. And that's worldwide. Like that's every population. Like that is like stroke, heart attack, cardiovascular disease is the number one killer. So it has to be like I hope that one day, like how women get mammograms and men get like prostate checks and colonoscopies, like we really should have the CCTA or the coronary calcium score right there with preventative screenings. Because yes, we're looking at blood work too, but those also really like when you see it in black and white on paper, like what your arteries look like hits a little different. Same thing with the blood work. And that just has to be a priority for you because unless you want to end up with a heart attack or a stroke or end up at the nursing home, like later on in life, like you have to make that a priority in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, like 100%.
yeah, and I think big moral of the story here is like know what's going on under the hood. I think
Absolutely.
blood work is a low barrier at this point to understanding
Hmm.
deeper like deeper things about you, your health, like your history and where you want to go.
Yep. Yep. The value, like you can get blood work almost anywhere, but the value's in the interpretation. So just making sure that you have somebody to be able to interpret that blood work to help you understand it and really give you some good guidance on what to do with your lifestyle and make those improvements.
Sweet. Cool. That's all I got. Do you have
Okay.
anything else that you want to discuss?
Yeah. I think we hit on a ton of things. I think it's just, it we need to be able to perform at our jobs, in our homes for our families. And in order to do that and create that generational health, like we talk about generational wealth, but we to improve a lot of the issues we have in the world, like if we just start in our own home and we improve our own health and improve those habits and show our kids those habits, like we will impact those changes generationally. And it really can start as simple as like eating protein, talking about that, making like showing that the gym is part of the routine. Like when you do that and your kids see that, they won't have to fight as hard later on because what you don't fix now, you pass it on to the next generation. So if you take control and you do that now, you will make a greater impact like far along after you're gone. So start in your home, make those little changes, and there's no other option really at the end of the day.
Love it. Where can people find more about you and Live One?
Yeah. So liveonehealth.com. Currently, we're in Michigan. We're going to be starting to serve several other states here very, very soon. So we're getting a new website launching here soon, but we're at Live One Health, LIV1, the number one health.com. Instagram, Jess Raymond.NP on Instagram. But we have a podcast coming soon and all the things. So I'm everywhere. But yeah, liveonehealth.com is probably the easiest way right now.
Well, cool. Well, thanks
Yeah,
so much for your time and
yeah,
yeah, I look forward to talking to you in the future and
absolutely.
go Lions.
All right. Yeah, go Lions.